So even though I say we're starting standing, I'm sort of doing this in a way to give us a bit more space in the classes. I was feeling that they needed to, anyway, let's see how we get on. So just because, I suppose what I'm trying to say is just because we're starting standing, it shouldn't be hopefully too much like hard work. Let me just adjust my screen slightly. So I'm trying out tonight with my light a little bit darker behind me, but if you seem to think if it's too dark, then let me know. So what I'd like you to do to start with is to start in standing. So just have a look at your feet and organise your feet so they're a little distance apart. And I always find it helps me to look at my feet to be able to feel them a bit better. So once you've looked at your feet, then just settle in standing for a moment. And what I've been focusing on starting in standing is really trying to let my shoulders drop and let my arms hang. And some of you might, like me, might have this sort of feeling of being a bit sort of, hunched up from the winter and the lockdown and everything. And you don't have to feel that you're forcing your shoulders back. But I find if I just settle in standing, then I can start to feel a little bit wider across the front of my chest. So just letting the shoulders drop, letting the arms hang, and just having a moment to see how you feel. But, it's better not to try and sort of force anything, to go gently. And then what we're going to do is, yes, sort of loose, easy, swinging twists. And we're going to work a bit with twists today, in standing and in other positions as well. So this is just a really easy twist where we're letting everything come along. And obviously we'll do some twists where we're trying to fix a part of our body and really find some movement in the rib cage. So a few more times, letting your arms swing, letting them slap onto your body, and just, seeing how does it feel to let your feet move as well. Just how does it feel to move? How does your body feel? How do you feel? We are our body. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Okay, good. A couple more times. Let the arms swing and then let that go. And come back again to looking down at your feet, settling your feet down a little distance apart. And then stop looking at your feet and just come to a little bit of swaying from side to side. Now you can do this with your eyes open, or if you like, you could do this with your eyes closed. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot this week is really my feet in standing. So what I'd like you to do is just drop your attention down into your feet and notice how it feels as the weight rocks over one foot and the weight rocks over the other foot. And then you're going to let your weight come to settle through both feet as evenly as possible, but we're not being fussy about it. Settle the weight through both feet, and we're going to come into a very easy forward bend. So it might be good to start by bending your knees a little and coming to rest your elbows on your thighs and let your head go. And just tune in with your lower back. And my lower back always feels better in the evening than in the morning. So it might be that you then feel perfectly happy to let your arms release to the floor, but you don't have to. You could keep your elbows resting on your thighs, particularly if your lower back doesn't feel, 100% happy. And just see how it feels to be in a forward bend. Have a couple more cycles of breath here. And just, be gentle with yourself. So recognizing this is the first forward bend. And each time we come into one, it's going to feel a little bit. Okay, so start to roll up. Maybe as you exhale, come back up into standing. And what we're going to do now is, again, just feet, and you can give your legs a little shake out. So obviously do this, you don't have to wait for me to tell you if you feel that you want to move. And then again, settle your feet back down again, a little distance apart. We're going to let our arms come up now, and we're going to be shifting our weight again from side to side. So as your weight comes into one leg, reach up through that arm. So my weight's coming into my right leg, I'm reaching up through my right arm. And then left side reaching up. So just do this a few times. Try not to look up as you're doing this. Try to look forwards and just, yeah, reach up with your fingers. Okay, not everyone likes to keep their arms up for a long time. So let your arms come down. Just let them hang. And then we'll take our arms back up and we'll do the one where we catch one hand around our wrists. So you're going to take your arms up. You're going to reach up through your right arm, shift your weight into your right leg, and then catch your left hand around your right wrist and draw yourself up and over to the left for a breath or two. Come back to the center, reach up through your left arm, shift your weight into your left leg, draw yourself up and over to the right. Good, very nice. And then release. Give your arms a little shake out, give your legs a little shake out. And we're going to come back into another forward bend and just see how the forward bend number 2 feels. So again, you could be bending your knees a little bit, resting your elbows on your thighs, or releasing your arms to the floor. So just sort of seeing how do the back of your legs feel? How does your lower back feel? Look down at your feet. If your toes are gripping the floor, then maybe shift your weight back a bit more into your heels, so your toes can be long and relaxed. Maybe a big exhalation. And then in a moment, again, we'll roll back into standing, perhaps as you exhale. And if your lower back needs support, I didn't say this the first time, walk your hands up the front of your thighs. And then we're going to take our feet a bit wider apart. So it could be, if you're facing the narrow edge of your mat, you bring your feet as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. And then just come here to a little bit of shifting your weight side to side. Now it feels quite different because to shift your weight in this, you almost sort of stick one hip out, don't you? And then the other. And we'll then start to coordinate this with taking one arm up. So we shift our weight, we take our arm up, that's it, the side we're shifting into. And just see how this feels going from side to side a few times. Shifting your weight into one leg, taking your arm up. And then we could stay for a couple of breaths. Yeah, so maybe next time you come up, just what's it like to stay here, let your breath come in, let your breath leave you. Give the bottom arm away, that's it. And it's not always, you know, if you don't feel comfortable staying there, don't stay, keep moving. And try the other side, take the other arm up, let the other arm, the bottom arm hang. Feel your breath come in, feel your breath leave you. And then we'll come back to the center and we'll come into a forward bend with our feet this distance apart. So again, I do quite like in this one, even if my back's feeling fine, to bend my knees and rest my elbows on my thighs. Again, it's up to you. Just see how it feels as you go forwards. It feels quite different in the hip joints when our feet are wider apart. Might also feel different in the legs. See how it feels through the backs of your legs, and give yourself a couple of cycles of breath in that forward bend, bending your knees as much as you like. Letting a breath come in. Yes, I've come up. So whenever you want to come up, of course, sinking into your heels, rolling up into standing and having a little shake out. So we're going to come and do a little bit more focusing on our feet. So I'd like you to come to the back of your mat. And what we're going to do is a little bit of walking up our mat and then walking backwards, back up our mat. So you don't necessarily have to slow down massively. So I'd like you to walk towards the front of your mat, feeling your footprints on the floor, and then walk back up your mat. That's it, not looking behind you. And slow down enough that you can feel that you're not wobbling. And do this perhaps a couple more times, walking up your mat, just feeling the mat beneath the soles of your feet. Slowing it down enough that you can feel each footprint as it hits the ground, but not so much that you feel, I always remember meditation teacher, I used to do a lot of walking meditation. saying you shouldn't be walking as if you're going to the gallows. So I always thought that was quite a helpful instruction. The next time you get to the end of your mat where we started, stay there. And then having said that, we probably now are going to walk as if we're going to the gallows, because we're going to slow our walking down and try and coordinate it with our breathing. So what I'd like you to do is, as you lift a foot off the floor, you're going to breathe in. And as you place your foot down, you're going to breathe out. And just see how that feels. So breathing in as your foot comes up, breathing out as your foot goes down. Breathing in, your foot comes up. Breathing out, your foot goes down. And it might well be, and you can go backwards again, might well be because we're slowing this down as we lift our foot completely off the floor. So it almost feels like a little mini balance. Breathing in, the foot comes up. Breathing out, the foot comes onto the floor. And again, when you reach the back of your mat, then stay there. Oh, hang on. Somebody's having problems coming in and out. Let's sound back in. Okay, now let's use this stepping forwards on our mat to come into a standing, just to start to think a little bit more about standing on one foot, a standing balance. So what I'd like you to do is step with your right foot 1, your left foot 2, your right foot 3, and then you're just going to have your weight on your right foot and let your left leg swing. So it skims the ground. Now, you could do a big movement, and it might be that you sort of could kick your foot a bit and bend your knee. Yeah. Okay. And then can you make that a smaller movement and not let your knee bend? Just let your leg swing a little bit. Good. Can you let it become smaller and smaller? And then could you float your arms up? And still your leg is just sort of hanging out of your pelvis. Good. Good. Very nice. Let your shoulders drop. Okay. Good. Come back to the back of your mat. And we'll try the same thing on the other side. So this time we'll step forwards with the left foot, 1, the right foot's 2, the left foot's 3. And then we're just going to let the right leg swing this time. And you can start by doing a bigger movement. You can start by sort of kicking that leg if you like. Your foot can skim the floor. And then can you start to make that movement smaller? So you're trying to not bend your knee now. And it's almost the leg is just sort of hanging from your pelvis and rocking a little bit forwards and back. Smaller and smaller movements as you then let your arm float up. Arms rather. That's it. Good. Very nice. Okay, come to the back of the mat again, and perhaps I might just show you what we're going to do this time. So watch for a moment. We're going to step forwards again, and once you're on your right foot, this time you're going to have your hands on your pelvis, and you're going to let the leg swing and try and catch the backward swing of the leg, and let yourself tilt forwards in response. Yeah. So as your leg swings back, you're trying to let your body tip forwards. Okay. So let's be at the back of the mat and let's step forwards again. So our right foot's going to step forwards 1, our left foot 2, our right foot 3. And then bring your hands onto your pelvis. And what we're going to do is just this feeling of, can we let the leg tip back? And can we let our body tip forwards in response? And we'll try it a few times. So rather than necessarily staying in the balance, try and find that feeling of your leg tipping back. And then your body tips forwards. And it's quite easy in this. I mean, all of you know what you're doing. But it is quite easy in this to start to tip forwards with the body and the leg is not going up anymore. So if it comes to a point where your leg is no longer going up, then it probably, you don't want to tip any further forwards with your body. You try it one more time. So can we catch this feeling? The leg tips up. You don't have to go very far necessarily, yeah? So it's just trying to feel that we're a bit like a seesaw here. As one end goes up, the other end comes down. Yeah, it can be quite nice to just actually go less far than we would think. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a smaller movement, and maybe we feel a bit more steady. Brilliant, well done. Okay, have a little shake out. We'll try the other side and then we will do a forward bend, Emma, if you're feeling it's in need of one. So, left foot now is going to step forwards. 1, 2, 3. So we're coming to stand on our left foot, unless that's what you just did. Hands on the back of your pelvis. You're going to let your right foot tip back. And you let your shoulders tip forwards in response. And again, yeah, you don't have to go really far. What's perhaps more important is trying to get this feeling of connection between the head and the heel, the shoulders and the heel. So you're only tipping as far forwards in your upper body as your back leg can tip up. If it's easy for you, of course, you could have a couple of breaths somewhere. If you come in something, you think, oh, I'm balancing quite well. And if you're finding it hard, then just, again, like last time, don't go so far. Let your leg tip up, let your body tip forwards. It doesn't have to be all the way. Yeah, lovely, really nice. So there's a good lesson there, isn't there? There maybe if we're slightly less ambitious, then maybe it all feels a little bit easier. Let's come into another forward bend. And if it would be nice to give your legs a shake out first, if it would be nice for your lower back, we'll go on into a squat. So feet a little distance apart. We'll roll down into another forward bend. If you like your elbows on your thighs, or if you want to release your arms to the ground. Well, it is your ground, isn't it, in your room, in your home. So see how it feels to come into a forward bend. How do the backs of the legs feel now? If it would be nice for your lower back to come on into a squat, then you can start to bend your knees forwards over your feet. And let your bottom drop down. And don't worry if your heels come up. Obviously, there's lots of things. I'm saying we're coming into a squat. If it's good for your lower back to do a squat, and in your room you've got a sofa or something to hang on to, which would mean your heels could stay down, you can always do that if that feels better for your back. Or a door handle if they're securely attached. I'm not sure many of mine are. Okay, so we can have a couple of breaths in our forward bend. And then we'll make our way back, sort of reverse the movement. We'll come back into a forward bend from our squat, back into a forward bend. And then keeping the knees bent a little bit, rolling up into standing. And let's just have a moment in standing, gathering our attention into our breathing before we move on into a little bit more movement. So settle in standing with your feet a little distance apart and bring one hand onto your belly and one hand onto your chest. And just let yourself settle. Close your eyes if you like. Just see how does it feel to connect with your breathing in standing. And yeah, by all means, if you want to sway a little bit from side to side, you can do. If you prefer to let your arms hang, you can do. And just see if you can have a little quiet moment in standing, feeling your breath come in, feeling your breath leave you. Okay, let's come, so you've got, you can be orientated how we were a moment ago. We're going to be stepping 1 foot forwards again, just one step this time. So from where you are with your feet side by side, step 1 foot forwards on your mat, and then just do a little bit of this sort of walking that doesn't get us anywhere, where we shift our weight forwards and back. So again, this just helps us to feel our feet on the ground. And there's something about feeling our feet that just helps our brains to quieten down. Okay. And then you're going to let both feet settle down. And we're going to come into a forward bend here with one foot stepped forwards. So again, you can bend your front knee. You can come to rest for a breath or two with your arms on your front leg. So keep your back leg straight, your back knee straight but not locked, and your front knee bent. And then if you like, you can then fold the weight of your body over that bent front leg. Let your arms release, your arms and head release to the ground. It doesn't matter whether they touch the ground. Obviously, it makes you feel a bit less wobbly if your fingertips do come onto the ground. And just have another couple of cycles of breath there, seeing how this forward bend feels where we've got one foot stepped forwards. Giving our head to the ground, letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave us. Come up on an exhalation, so sink down into your heels and see if you can come up. So when we come up, we want to try and come up quite sort of, I say, cleanly or without, too much wobbling. Come back, step your foot back next to the other one, and then step the other foot forwards. And again, come to a little bit of this toing and froing. So just make sure, I'm sure you all know this, make sure that you've got some sideways distance between your feet so you don't feel like you're on a tightrope. So obviously, what we're doing here is trying to help ourselves feel steadier on all levels. Steadier, more rooted, more connected with the ground. And we're going to do the same forward bend on this side. So from shifting your weight forwards and back, settle your weight in both feet. We didn't do this on the other side, but I often do sort of have my hands on my pelvis, have a big sighing breath or two. So we're just trying to feel from the waist down, we're very planted and steady. Bend your front knee. And then start to fold forwards over that bent front leg. So the back leg is straight but not locked. Rest your forearms on that bent front thigh, and if you like, then you can fold further forwards, let your chest come to rest on your thigh, let your head go, let your arms go, let your breath come in, let your breath leave you. And just be in the pose. Feeling your breath, feeling your body, and maybe above all here, feeling the contact of your footprints on the ground. The heels, you can have a little look at your toes, are your toes long and relaxed? And then as we exhale, sink down into your footprints, come back up into standing. Have a little shake out. Now, just before, we're going to go back into that same position from the waist down, but do a twist. But I just want you to, before we do that, settle with your feet side by side. Bring your hands onto your pelvis and then onto your ribs and just feel this movement. It's a small, it's not a huge movement. Can we not move the pelvis? Can we move our ribs? And it might help if you bring your hands on your shoulders, because we can move our shoulders. So we can move our shoulders and we cannot move our pelvis, which is what we're going to try to do in the next twist, okay? So we'll see how we get on. I'm going to turn around this way so I don't have to turn away from you. So come back to whichever foot you stepped forwards last time. So you're going to step your foot forwards again. If you want to shift your weight forwards and back, you can. Maybe it's feeling a bit more familiar now. We're going to bend the front knee again. So front knee bent, back leg straight. And you're going to fold forwards, but this time you're trying not to go any further than having your spine parallel with the ground. And we're trying to let our spine lengthen out and flatten rather than curve forwards, because that will help us twist. And then your front leg, you're going to keep that arm resting on your bent front leg, and the other hand comes onto the back of your pelvis. So we're turning away from our front leg, and we're trying not to move our pelvis. We're trying to move our ribs, our shoulders, our head. And we can release our bottom arm to the ground. So that arm could hang, or our fingers could come on our calf, maybe not the calf, maybe the shin, the ankle, the fingertips on the floor, and the top arm could come up. So we're in this twist. We're seeing, can we breathe here? Can we soften if we're feeling tight or tense or uncomfortable? And can we feel steady through our feet? Maybe one more cycle of breath, and then we'll untwist and again fold forwards over the bent front leg and release your head. So now you can let your spine curve forwards and let your head release to the ground. And again, come up as you exhale, sinking down into your feet. So we're trying to sort of come up in a sort of steady, clean way. And then we'll do the other side. Have a little shake out maybe of legs before we do the other side. So feet side by side, stepping the other foot forwards, bending that front knee. And then leaning forward. So we come to this place where we're letting our spine lengthen out and flatten. So you could have your hands on your first front thigh. You could have your forearm. So make sure your back leg is straight. You keep the same arm as the front leg on the thigh. The other hand comes on the back of your pelvis. And then we're turning our ribs and our shoulders away from our bent front leg. Good. We could release our bottom arm to our ankle, our shin, to the floor, whatever feels good. Yes, and then take the top arm up. And we're trying to feel that top arm is immediately above the bottom arm. And our hand, can your hand be soft and relaxed? That's quite important. If your hand sort of feels it's got sort of twisted up, that doesn't feel very good. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you, and then you're going to untwist. Fold over your bent front leg, let your head go, let your arms go. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then sink into your heels. Come back up into standing, have a little shake out. And I think we're going to come back into that pose in a different way in a little bit, but we're going to do a few other things first. So come to the back of your mat and we're going to make our way down through a forward bend, dog pose, and then have a few quiet breaths in child pose. So just feel yourself in standing before you go anywhere. So feel yourself in standing at the back of your mat. Big footprints on the floor, and then just start to let yourself roll forwards into a forward bend and see how this forward bend feels now after we've done those sort of footsteps forwards, forward bend. This might feel a little bit easier now. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Enjoy your forward bend if it feels enjoyable. And then when you're ready, starting to walk your hands forwards into dog pose. And giving yourself a few breaths in dog before folding down into child pose. So we've managed to get nearly sort of halfway through a class in our first dog pose. So if you're pleased to be in dog pose, you might want to have a couple more breaths. We will be doing some more dog. But from dog pose, folding down into child pose when you're ready. And just let yourself settle and come to rest in child. If you prefer to be in kneeling, that's absolutely fine. So child pose or kneeling, just choose. And wherever you are, just gather your attention into your breathing. And I'd like you to feel 3 cycles of breath move through you. So I think I was probably talking last week about being up close to your breathing. And that's what I'd like you to do in child. Really focus your attention on the feeling of the breath moving through you. The in-breath and the out-breath. So from child pose, we're going to come onto hands and knees, and we're going to do a little bit of cat and a little bit of tail wagging. So again, these are things that we quite often do a bit earlier on in class. So it'd be interesting to see how they feel. Now, so how does it feel to round your back to the ceiling? How does it feel to dip your spine down to the floor? And let your breath just sort of flow in a natural and easy way. So you're not trying to breathe in any particular way, but you also don't want to be holding your breath. So just, yeah, let the breath move through you as you round your back and as you dip your spine, and keeping it comfortable, keeping it enjoyable. You could then, if you like, do a little bit of wagging your tail. So imagining you have a tail and wagging it or swishing it. So I was thinking, yeah, fish sort of swishing tails. I know if you have cats, cats do swish their tails, but often that's a sign that they're not best pleased with wagging your tail. Then maybe coming back again to a little bit more cat, rounding and dipping. So really up to you just for another moment or two. And then if you need to take your weight off your hands for a moment, do. But I want us to come into another dog pose. So if you feel maybe it might be good just to sit back for a moment over your heels and give your hands a shake out. And then we'll come into another dog pose from the ground, and just see how that feels. So big hands on the floor, tucking your toes under, exhaling, rocking your hips up and back into dog pose. And have a couple of breaths here. Again, of course, any of the things that you would like to do in dog pose that help you to release. So bending one knee and then the other knee, bending both knees. Lovely. And do come down from dog in your own time. There'll be some more dog poses, don't worry. We're going to do a little mini sequence now with twists and lunges. So you're going to be coming into this position where we've got one foot stepped forwards and you've got your knee over your heel. You've got, I was thinking about this when this is one of my lockdown poses. So I've sort of rediscovered during this last. So you've got a little sideways distance. So knee, what should I say? Knee over your front heel, back knee under your pelvis, and we turn towards this front leg. So I think you all know this one. So turn towards the front leg, let the shoulders drop, particularly the back shoulder. And then we either give away the back arm and try and let it be heavy and floppy, or it can come onto the back of our pelvis, and the front arm comes to rest on the front leg. I have a couple of breaths here, and I was thinking this one, I like to have this feeling of being wide across the front of my chest, particularly as I breathe in. Very nice. And then you're going to untwist. You're going to fold forwards over that front leg, tuck your back toes under, and just step your back leg back. So we're coming into lunge. And give yourself a couple of breaths in lunge. And then we're going to come into a twist in lunge. So the opposite hand to foot is going to remain on the floor. So we're turning again towards the front leg. So you can bring your back hand onto the back of your pelvis again. And then if you like in this one, you can take your back knee off the ground by stretching into your back heel. So obviously your toes need to be tucked under. And then you reach forwards with your arm, so in the opposite direction to your back heel. So we've got this sort of long line from our back heel to our fingertips. And it's quite a strong stretch. We try and have a couple of breaths here, really feeling it through the front of the bottom leg. And do come down when you've had enough. When you come down, untuck your back toes And then ease yourself back. So this sort of easing back out of lunge where our chest stays close to our thigh and we look back behind us. For a couple of breaths. And then we'll do that whole little sequence on the other side. So I'm just going to turn around so I can still see you. So stepping your other foot forwards. So we're going to do this twist. So again, we've got our front knee over our heel, our back knee under our pelvis. We try to feel as steady here as possible. Always easy to settle through a knee. And turning towards the front leg. So we're really trying to feel this movement in our ribs, in our shoulders. This is the rib cage. It's the rib cage that we're moving. It's the vertebrae attached to the rib cage. So when we do these twists, they help our breathing to free up. They also give the abdominal organs quite a good massage as well. So backhand is either floppy or resting on the back of the pelvis. So it's almost a bit like when you sort of squeeze out a sponge, we sort of come into the twist and when we come out of it, all the sort of blood flows back everywhere. So we can untwist, we can fold forwards over that front leg, we can tuck our toes under in the back leg and sort of step the back leg back behind us till we end up in a lunge. So make sure at this point that your front knee is still over your front heel. It's fine if it goes a bit forward. Well, I think in this, actually, if we're doing the lunge twist, it is pretty helpful to have the knee over the heel. So remember, opposite hand stays on the floor, or it could be up on your knuckles if you prefer, or your fingertips. You're turning towards your front leg. That's it. So that top arm comes onto your back of your pelvis, and you can tuck your toes under, send your heel back behind you, let your bottom knee come off the ground, and then reach forwards. So it's rather, yes, bit of a strong stretch and trying to keep our twist. So we're trying to keep our body turned towards the front leg and we're trying to breathe as well. Good. You don't have to stay there long. Yes, you can let your back knee come down, you can untwist, you can then untuck your toes, ease back out of that lunge, keeping your chest close to your thigh, looking back behind you. And then we'll come into another dog pose, which will feel nice because with it just doing something quite sort of simple and familiar. And we just see if we can settle in this dog pose. So big handprints on the floor, tucking your toes under, coming up into dogs. How does it feel to be in a dog pose where can we be sort of quiet? Can we feel our breath? Can we use dog poses as a sort of place of rest? So from dog pose, we'll come into child, and it's really up to you how long you want to stay in dog and when you want to come into child. If pose feels that it can be restful, that you can release tension here, then you can stay for a bit longer. Yes, lovely dog poses, looking really fantastic. Good. Very nice. And then, yes, fold down into child pose and just give yourself a couple of quiet breaths, 2 or 3 quiet breaths in child. Letting your body settle onto the ground and feel heavy and as soft and relaxed in your shoulders as possible. From child pose, walk your hands in towards you and come so you're sitting in kneeling, which I think all of you are happy with sitting in kneeling. If it's better for you to put a cushion between your heels and your bottom, do so. And if being in kneeling really isn't great, then be up in kneeling. I just want us to do a little bit of a twist here in kneeling. And let me see, and I'm just thinking I might show you what we're going to do next, because it isn't, so some of you will be familiar with it. So you could be doing your kneeling twist turning away from me, and then do your kneeling twist turning towards me, and I'll show you what we're going to do. So some of you will be familiar with this, but I don't think I've actually done this on Zoom. We're going to come into this little sort of sprinter position where this foot's on the floor, these toes are tucked under. A couple of times we're just going to then let the legs lengthen out, so we come to here. So we do that a couple of times, and then the third time we do this, we're then going to see, can we take it into that little twist we were doing before? Okay, so come into this little sprint position. I've got my knee, so I've got toes tucked under, knee on the ground. If your toes can't tolerate that, the knee can come off the ground. My knee's roughly level with the middle of my foot, but you might need to play around a little bit with that. What's really important is this foot, the front foot is completely on the ground. So if the back knee has to come up, that's fine. Chest stays close to your thigh. Can you keep your chest close to your thigh and let your back leg lengthen out? Your heel might not touch the ground, it's fine. And just come up and down a couple of times. And just, where do you get to? Look at your feet. If you haven't got much sideways distance, when you come back down, you might want to take a bit more sideways distance between your feet. And then the next time you come up, you can see, what is it like to come this way into that little twist we did? So it might be you keep your fingertips, or even I quite like my hand completely on the floor, turning away from my bent front leg, taking my arm up. Or you might be a little bit higher up. You might bring your hand onto your foot. Or you might even bring your, remember that front leg is bent, your front knee stays bent. Good. So just sort of, see what are the possibilities here. Coming back into this twist. Good. Very nice. And then untwisting, coming back down, so bending both knees, so we come back down into that little sprint position. And then we'll have the joy of trying it all on the other side. So again, I'll turn around so I can see you. So swap over, so you're in that same little sprint type position, but with the other foot in front. Make sure you've got that sideways distance, because I was noticing that I was ending up with my feet a bit too narrow, and then I felt much more wobbly. So as you exhale, you start to straighten your back leg. Keep your chest close to your thigh. Come up and down a couple of times and just see what happens as you start to straighten that back leg. Try and keep your chest close to your front thigh, resting there if possible. And then let your head go as you come up. It doesn't matter if your back heel doesn't reach the ground. Obviously, when we come into the twist, at that point, it's important to come up enough that your back heel does touch the ground, or clearly you're going to be very wobbly. So third time we come up, then we can see how is it to move into the twist. And it's going to feel different coming from the ground into it. You could be on your hand, you could be on your fingertips, you could bring your hand up onto your ankle, or even bring your forearm to rest on your bent front thigh. So just, be a little bit more experimental here. Good, very nice. And then untwisting back into your forward bend, bending the knees down through your sprint. And we're going to do one more, I think that's what we're doing, yes, one more dog pose. Yeah, you might possibly just want to rest for a moment in kneeling or in child pose. We're going to do one more dog pose, and if you like, you can do your one-legged dog pose. So that's why you might want to have a little breather first. So yes, if you want a couple of breaths in child or kneeling. And then we'll move on into dog pose. And again, when we come into dog, there's going to be that feeling of initially, you know, compared to what we just did, the sort of a quiet, perhaps easy, familiar place. So you don't have to be in a rush to come into your one-legged dog. You might just like to come into a sort of quiet, steady dog. Again, a dog pose that you could rest in, you can be in, you can breathe in. Bending your knees as much as you like, one knee or both knees. And then if you like, of course, then you can explore your one-leg dog poses. And it really, you know, you don't have to. It just depends how, I always say this, it depends how lively you're feeling at this point in the class. And, you know, again, you don't have to say they're long if you bring one leg up. It could be just a little exploration of what's it like to reach up and back through your heel. Your pelvis can roll. Good. Very nice. When you come, that's lovely, yeah, dog poses look very nice. So when you come back down, just again, once more, folding down into kneeling or into child pose, depending what feels better for you right now. And let your breath come in, let your breath leave you. So from child pose, we're going to slither forwards onto our bellies. So come to settle on your belly. And maybe start with one hand on top of the other and your cheek or your forehead resting on the back of your hands. And give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle. And just see how does it feel to settle. So we're coming to start to lie down a little bit now. You've done very well with no lying down so far. So how is it to lie on your belly? How is it to wiggle your pelvis? And let your legs settle on the ground. And I'm just going to do a very simple little lifting of the head movement. So from having your hands under your head, slide your hands forwards a bit so your forehead can come onto the floor and you've got your arms either side of your head. You're going to let your breath come in, and as you exhale, you're going to be lifting your head, sinking down into your forearms. So it's not a huge movement. You can come back down as you breathe in, and just maybe do this 3 times. So exhaling, sinking into your forearms, lifting your head. And maybe when you come up the 3rd time, stay there for a cycle of breath. So exhaling, down into your forearms, staying there, supporting your head, feeling a cycle of breath move through you. You can do that maybe one more time, and then we're going to roll over onto our backs. So as you exhale down into your forearms, lift your head, let your breath come in, let your breath leave you. And then head back onto the floor, roll over onto your back, and if you can, do this disturbing yourself as little as possible. So you're just going to roll over, and I'd like you to arrive on your back and just lie however you want to for a moment. And so it's always something rather enjoyable about lying down onto our backs. In my book, it says breathe. Yes, so lie however you want to and breathe. I would probably choose to lie with my knees bent and my feet standing on the floor. And be resting your hands on the front of your body, feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave you. And That's nice. Let's maybe feel one more cycle of breath move through you. Let's see, we're going to do a couple of twisting things on our backs. So the first thing you're going to do from here is fold your knees into your chest and hold around your knees. That's it. And do a little bit of rocking from side to side, exactly. That's nice, lovely. Do a little bit of rocking from side to side. You can also do a little bit of taking your legs up towards the ceiling and giving them a shake out. And then we're going to do one of the things that's suddenly sort of become one of my favourite things at the moment, which is from here. So let your knees fold back in towards your chest and then wrap one arm around the back of your legs, around the back of your knees, and bring the other arm onto the floor at shoulder height. So we're going to come into a floor twist here. So we're leaving our arm and shoulder on the floor, and we're taking our knees down towards the floor on the other side, really keeping them close to our chest, supporting them with our arm. And it might well be, I mean, I've been doing this and just keeping my arm under my legs. But if your legs easily reach the ground and you want to take your arm out from under them, you can do. Just make sure your shoulder stays settled on the ground. So that's it, good. And have a few breaths there. Lovely. So just see how it feels. So for a long time, I didn't find this twist was that comfortable, but of course we got back into it again. And if you had a cushion to hand, you can, have another few breaths on this side. If it's not so comfy, bring your knees back to the center. And we will, but if it's comfortable, stay there, because these floor twists really benefit from staying in and breathing. And you've moved a lot. Sometimes a big sighing breath is helpful. So you're welcome to have another breath or two on that side. If you feel ready to bring your knees back to the center, come back to the center, swap your arms over. So the arm that was supporting your legs now comes down onto the floor. The other arm comes around the back of your thighs, around the back of your knees. Keep your knees close to your chest as you exhale, taking them down onto the floor, the opposite direction to the outstretched arm, going on to the other side now. That's it. So again, I quite like to just keep my arms supporting my knees, keep it sort of under around the back of my legs. You don't have to do that. That's nice, Alison, actually bringing your hand to rest on top of your legs is very nice. If your legs don't quite reach the floor, you could always slide a cushion under them if you've got a cushion or a pillow to hand. Big exhalation can help. But also see how this side too feels, because it might feel quite different. You might be happy to stay on one side and the second side might not be happy to stay. So just really work with your body and what feels right for you this evening. So if you want to have another breath or two or three there, you can do. When you want to bring your knees back to the center, do. And then I think it might then be quite nice to lengthen your legs out on the floor for a moment and just roll your legs or bounce your knees. I just want to slightly turn up the heating here. And let's see, yes, I think we've got time just to do a little bit more. You're going to do sort of a little bit more sort of rocking type twists, which sometimes we start at the beginning of class. So what I'd like you to do now is to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And in fact, maybe then start by just letting your head roll to the right and to the left. That's it, and feel the sort of changing contact of the back of your head on the floor as you let it roll from side to side. And from rolling your head from side to side, find a comfortable place to settle the back of your head on the ground. And then start to let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. That's nice. Good. Just see how this feels. Keep it comfortable, keep it easy. Find a rhythm that is enjoyable. Enjoyable is maybe soothing, relaxing. I want it to be too stimulating at this point in the evening. Good. Okay, just pause in the center for a moment and let a breath come in and let a breath leave you. And then take your feet a bit wider apart, so they're as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. And come to tilting your knees again now with your feet wider and see how this feels. So let your knees tilt to the right, that's, and to the left. Good, very nice. And eventually with this one, you might like to let your legs then tip all the way over to one side and stay there for a few breaths. And make sure you're letting, if you've got the space, that you're letting the bottom knee, that's Alison, good, drop down. Now you can take this one sort of a further stage on if you like. So leave the bottom leg falling down onto the ground and then fold the other knee in towards your chest. That's it. And support, you're going to support it. That's it, Jan. You can lengthen it out as well. You're going to support that knee with the opposite hand. And I like to make a little platform. So I have my elbow on the ground. That's it, exactly. And you support your knee with your hand. So it's a little shelf. Or like Jan's doing, you could lengthen out that leg. But yeah, not towards the ceiling though. It's sort of more parallel with the ground if you straighten that leg. So you're trying to let the knee fall over. That's it. Good. Yeah, see if that leg can come a bit lower to the ground, Maria, because you're thinking, that's it. You're trying to keep your shoulder down and your leg is, if it's lengthening out, it's sort of not, yeah, it's not far off the ground. Otherwise it might just be a bit not so relaxed. That's, yeah, that looks nice. Well done. Good, good. And sometimes I lengthen out my top leg and then I just think, no, I'd prefer to have it bent. So, and also, again, if you've had enough on that side, come back to the center. Come back to a bit of tilt, so feet wide on the floor, wide as the narrow edge of the mat, tilting your knees from side to side. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So these are just all options. And what's, I suppose, most important is to try and find a place that's helpful to end up and stay in and breathe in for you, whether it's with that top leg straight or bent. So yes, let the knees come over onto the other side. Give the weight of the legs onto the floor. That's it. So let both knees drop down towards the floor on one side. So sometimes we forget that the bottom knee gets a bit left behind, but try and let that bottom knee fall down towards the ground as much as possible. Good. And then what we do is we would start to then, if you like, to go on to the next stage, is to then the top leg, you're trying to fold it in towards your chest, sort of in towards the opposite side, yes, and towards the opposite shoulder in that direction. So you're supporting that knee with the opposite hand. So your elbow can be on the floor. That's it. So support your knee with the opposite hand. So the elbow's on the floor and the knee's resting down onto the hand like a little shelf. That's it, good. And then if you lengthen the leg out, it obviously depends on how much space you've got, because if you do straighten your top leg, it could, you know, if it ends up on a sofa, that could be really helpful, or on a bed. That's good. Or yeah, on a kitchen cupboard by the look of it, Maria. So yeah, so sometimes taking the leg onto a surface. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's just what we have to do if we're running out of space. And then when you've had enough, coming onto your back And just, yeah, whatever you want to do for a moment. So we are going to settle down now and do a little bit of quiet breathing. So if you want to put on socks or a jumper or a blanket, that would be a good idea. So we're going to settle, and we're just going to do a couple of different breathing things to help us settle. And I'm sure they'll probably all be familiar to all of you. So settle down on your back. You can have your knees bent or your legs long, whichever you prefer. And you can either rest your hands on the front of your body, or you can rest your arms on the floor beside you. Again, whatever feels most comfortable. And we're going to start with 3 or 4 big sighing breaths. So if we let the breath come in through our nostrils and then leave through our mouth with a big sigh. Maybe one more time. And then settling, just feeling the flow of your natural breath for a couple of cycles of breath, letting your body rest on the ground, feeling the movement of the breath through your body. And then 3 times we're going to do a sort of long blowing breath. So again, it's out through our mouth, but this is a bit more like you're blowing on soup to cool it down. So it's a longer breath. So we're going to let the breath come in through your nostrils. So a long blowing breath out through sort of pursed up lips. And we'll do that twice more. So letting your breath come in. And one last time. And then again, settling quietly with the flow of your natural breath. Feeling your breath come in, feeling your breath leaving you. And then we're going to finish with 3 cycles of our hissing breath. And this one is very good, as we all know, for getting rid of tension, making this hissing sound. So we let the breath come in through the nostrils and we hiss on our out breath with our tongue behind our teeth. And again, let the breath come in and hiss on your out breath. And one last time.
And just returning to feeling the flow of your natural breath. In a moment, I'm going to ring the singing bowl. Just let yourself feel the flow of your breath. Let your body rest on the ground. So, your own time, no hush, thank you.